No, there's something about. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is the temperature that is considered Yatziledis. It's considered hot enough to be, when we use the term Yatziledis, the hand recoils. You could all try it out and see how hot it's hot. You could put your finger in and see how it feels.
Okay.
Okay, just pass it around. This one you won't keep your finger inside. This is 150. Now, let me see what this is. Okay, this is this got cooler. Okay, so this is right now this is 140. This is this is Bia Klishani. I'm just this is dropped 10 degrees, and we're pouring it now into a Klishi, into a third vessel. In other words, the one that's in the urn, let's see how it's now.
Not really hot.
No, let's see what it is. Let's see what this is now. This was 140 when I poured it. Now it's 130. But the temperature is constantly dropping. Okay. Now, so let me.
What page are we on?
We're on page 165. And please have this passed around.
Yes, I do. Robert, can you explain the context again of what?
Okay, as we will, yes.
I think we have a lot of new people too.
Okay, we'll. Now,
Oh, wait, I have two. I have two.
One more.
It's just very quiet.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Now all this is coming to tell us. I have here this sheet which tells us different degrees, hot beverages. So we have the minimum, which is called Yatziledis boy. The hand retracts. It's not comfortable to keep your hand in this degree of water. So that's called Yatziledis. Right now we're up to 130. It's not comfortable. Okay, so once it reaches the temperature of 110, it's considered yatziledis. You brought it up to a temperature that is considered the beginning of cooking. This would make a difference when you want to warm something up. So we have as follows. We are actually in the middle of this discussion, so let me try to put it in a way that all those who are new can also follow us. Something that was pre-cooked, are you allowed to heat it again? That was so we have the malacha in the Mishkan was they produced the herbs and they used it as a dye. Part of the process of making the dye was we had the first 10 steps that were taking herbs and the preparing the ground, the planting, the reaping, and then perfecting it by taking out all the impurities, which would include selecting and sifting and winnowing. And then it was then ground and made into a powder. Then liquid was added to it and it was made into cakes. That's how it was stored. When they were ready to use the dye, they would boil up a cauldron of water, and then they would put the dye inside, and the dye would dissolve, become a part of this mixture of water and herbs. And then the next step would be they would take the wool and put it inside and then stir it so the wool would absorb the dye. So the Torah tells us that we're not allowed to make a fire on Shabbos. The Torah also tells us that any cooking that you want to have cooked items for Shabbos has to be cooked on Friday. This is explicitly in the Torah. The Torah says that when the man came down, a double portion on Friday, they were told, why is this double portion? Because on Shabbos there will not be any man, the heavenly food, coming down. And all that what you want to prepare for the Shabbos day has to be done on Friday. The Torah tells us, whatever you want cooked, cook it on Friday. Anything that you want baked, bake it on Friday. So the Torah explicitly, among the 39 categories of forbidden activities, there are a few that the Torah explicitly says. The remainder of the 39 are halacha l'Moshe Sinai. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's interpretation of what the Torah tells us in the Ten Commandments. Do not do any work on Shabbos. What is the definition of work? So Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us those 39 categories that were used in the building of the Mishkan. Since the Torah tells us the Mishkan cannot be built on Shabbos, which means all these 39 categories are activities that are forbidden to do on the Shabbos day. So we have the that which is cooked through fire or a derivative of fire, even when it's not on the fire. In other words, what happens if you cook up a soup? And the soup at this time is yatziledis, it is scalding. So then, even when you take it off the fire, and you put something raw inside the soup, and it cooks up, it's going to reach the temperature of yatziledis, which is the beginning of cooking, the scalding temperature. So then it's considered that you cooked on Shabbos, even though it's not on the fire. But since the soup was heated up through the fire, even though it's now removed, putting something into the pot of soup, that is also, and it's going to cook up, that is also going to be considered cooking on Shabbos. So whether it is directly on the fire or something that was heated on the fire, the same would also be taking a frying pan and putting it on the fire until it heats up, then taking it off the fire and then making a fried egg, even though it's not on the fire itself, but the fact that the frying pan was heated by the fire, then it would be frying, even though it's not directly on the fire, but it's indirectly because the frying pan was heated through the fire, and therefore it's considered frying, even though it's not directly on the fire, but it is a derivative of the fire. So whether it is directly on the fire or whether it's something that was cooked from the fire, like we speak about the hot soup, or the same thing is also going to be with cooking up water and then pouring the water into pouring the flow of the tea kettle onto something that is raw. So that's also considered cooking, because the heat of a tea kettle, that's called a kli rishon, that is the initial pot in which the food was heated. Whether it is a pot, or whether it is a tea kettle, or whether it is the electric urn, all of these are called kli rishon, the first vessel in which the contents was heated directly. So that's called kli rishon. So kli rishon, that which was directly heated by the fire, whether it's an urn, whether it is a teapot, or whether it is a pot of liquid that's on the fire, which is called cooking, all of these are considered kli rishon, the primary vessel. And the primary vessel cooks, whether you put it into the primary vessel, like putting something into the pot of liquid, or whether you're pouring from the primary vessel, that temperature is so hot that it's able to cook that which it comes in contact with. Now, our discussion now will be, are you allowed to reheat something that has been previously cooked? So we have two states. There is something that was pre-cooked, and davar yavesh, something that is dry. And then we have something that is pre-cooked, davar lach, something that has moisture or liquid to it. So with something that is dry, pre-cooked, so then you are permitted to heat it up, but not in a way that it looks like, to one who is observing, that it looks like you're starting the cooking to begin with, which would mean that what happens if you do have, give me an example of something that is pre-cooked and dry. Schnitzel, okay. Now we want to reheat the schnitzel. So putting it into a pan and taking that, so now with the schnitzel's in the refrigerator, and we want to warm up the schnitzel on Shabbos. So the schnitzel how was the schnitzel prepared? It was fried. Oops, we cannot reheat this. So we do have an issue. So we are able to reheat it in a way that it's not going to really change the consistency of the fried object. We're just going to warm it, which changing the consistency of something cannot be done on Shabbos from one matter to the other. In other words, taking something that is fried, when it's off you took the soup that's off the fire, and now you want to add something into the soup. So we say the kli rishon, the primary vessel, cooks. So whatever you're going to put inside while it's still hot, it is going to cook. You are permitted to recook something that is dry, but you could not take something that is baked and recook that and cook it, because there is a different consistency, something that is cooked and something that is baked, two different methods, and it also affects that item, how it's being changed, its consistency. In other words, let's say we do have our noodles. Let's start with noodles. Noodles that were pre-cooked on Friday, and they were drained very well. If you're going to touch them, they are not going to transfer any moisture to another item. It's called tefeach, amanas latviach. So if I were to touch the noodles, they're a little clammy. Is that considered wet? So let's try. I'm going to bring in some noodles. Experiment. No, but so we touch the noodles, and then I touch my other hand with the hand that touched the noodles. And if this hand stays dry, then the noodles are considered halachically dry. If it was not drained well, I'm going to touch the noodles. I'm going to touch my hand, and my hand is now moist. That means this is moist. It's able to transfer the moisture to another surface. So I touch the noodles, my hand It's dry, so now the noodles are halakhically dry. Both the top of it, the bottom of it is all dry. Now, I want to reheat these noodles. Could I put the noodles into the soup? The soup is hot. Could I put the noodles into the soup to reheat the noodles? Yes, no?
Yes.
Have to now we have to say where is the pot? If the pot, no. If the pot is still on the fire, I cannot add anything into the pot that's on the fire because it looks like I'm starting to cook to begin with. Even though halakhically it's not cooking because it's pre-cooked, it's not going to change the consistency of the noodles. However, the fact that it looks like I'm cooking, so niruk mavashal is a rabbinic prohibition that you could not take the noodles and put them into the soup while it's on the fire. However, once it's off the fire, then I could add the noodles into the soup because it's not niruk mavashal, it doesn't look like I'm cooking. What I'm doing is I am reheating. The same would also be what happens if I want to, again, warm the noodles, but I don't want to put them into the soup. Not everybody wants the noodle soup. People will have a choice to take the hot noodles and put in their soup if they wish. So now, what can I do if I want to reheat the noodles without putting them into the soup? Can I take the noodles, they're in a pot, can I take the pot and put it on the covered fire, on the blech? Can I do that?
Yes.
For someone who is observing this, what does it look like?
It's on fire or is it on black?
It's a blech. Yeah, but I'm putting it directly on the blech, taking the pot from the refrigerator, putting it on the blech. What does that look like?
Like you're cooking.
Looks like I'm cooking. Again, anything that looks like I'm cooking to begin with cannot be done. So therefore, I could not take the pot and put it directly onto the soup. That I could not do because it looks like I'm cooking. However, if I put it on top of an existing pot that's on the blech, that's on the covered fire, so am I allowed to do that? Since it's not cooking, I'm allowed to do it. Does it look like I'm cooking? What does it look like? Rewarming. Fine. So here we have, as far as the noodles are concerned, that was something that is permissible. Now, in our experiment, when we poured from a kli rishon, the primary vessel, downstairs, the urn was our primary vessel. The first one was kli sheni. The primary is called kli rishon, number 1. The second one is called kli sheni, number 2. How hot was the water in the kli sheni when she brought it up? What temperature did it register?
150.
150. What did we say that 150 could cook? Right? So anything I'm going to put into the kli sheni that would involve cooking cannot be done because the kli sheni is still, the temperature dropped. It's probably, what was the urn? According to here, the urn goes up to, doesn't say what, could be
It says a glass of hot tea is 165.
165, okay. So it would be 165. The boiling would be 212. So having the, so kli sheni is still hot enough that it still could cook. So if I were to put an egg, a raw egg, into this kli sheni with 150 degrees, so actually the kli sheni was hotter from the time that she came from downstairs until she came to here. The temperature also dropped in the kli sheni as well. I don't think it was 150 when she initially took it from the urn. I think it did cool down somewhat. So if the urn was 165, the fact that this was 150, it did drop 15 degrees. However, it's still 150. If I were to put an egg inside, a raw egg, and leave it here, what do you think would happen to this raw egg? It would, I don't think it would not turn into a hard-boiled egg. I don't know if it would be a very, but it would already change the composition of the egg, and it would be considered halachically that the egg was cooked in this kli sheni, number 2. However, in the kli shlishi, when we transfer the contents of the kli sheni into a second vessel, so our urn is number 1, our first utensil is number 2, and our second utensil is number 3. So we saw that from the 150, it went down to 130. Now, the temperature is constantly dropping since it's the fact that you're pouring it, so it's in the air, that itself is starting to cool it down. The fact that this vessel is also cool, also cools it down, so the temperature is constantly dropping. So with an egg, it's possible still that will change the composition of the egg because it's called kale habishul, something that takes a very low degree of temperature to change its composition. So some items, even in the kli shlishi, will also change. For instance, if you have oatmeal, to change the composition of oatmeal is a very low temperature. Oatmeal could be cooked in a kli shlishi as well. So you have that which is called kale habishul, that is very, very easy to change the composition through hot water. However, most items, and that is what we do in the halacha, that we say the kli shlishi does not cook, because even though initially it's hot, but it takes a certain amount of time to change the composition. By that time, the temperature has rapidly fallen. So as far as halachically we're concerned, we do use a kli shlishi for items that are that we want to rewarm. It's not considered cooking. So back again to our schnitzel. We could take the schnitzel and put it not in a pot and put it directly on the blech, but we could put it on top of a pot that's there already. If you don't have a pot, you could take one out of your cabinet, turn it upside down, and use that as a stand. It's going to be, again, no one cooks that way, so you are going to be able to rewarm it because it's pre-cooked. Now, what about baked items? Putting them in a hot liquid. So let's take crackers or matzah or challah. Can you put it in a kli sheni? So we have the soup is on the fire. We're taking the soup off the fire and we put it into a bowl. Can I put in this bowl? So now the bowl is kli sheni. Can I put the matzah and the crackers or soup nuggets? Could I put them in the kli sheni? Will the kli sheni change it? Will it be considered that I'm cooking the baked item? They are called kale habishul. It takes very low temperature to take the changeover. That's when some people like to have a coffee and then dip their biscuit in the coffee, tea, hot milk. Can you do that in a kli sheni with your biscuit? Or put in the soup, your soup nuggets that are floating, they're big, they're baked items. Can you put that in the soup in a kli sheni?
No.
So it does, kli sheni cooks baked items. So it has to be kli shlishi. If you want to put in the baked items in a soup or a hot liquid, the same your tea or coffee, it has to be kli shlishi. Now, something that is deep fried is considered cooked. And reheating something that is deep fried, the rules of bishul do not apply. How does that apply to our diet that we have? You have the little croutons. They're like little squares. You know what the croutons are? Little croutons. So the ones that awesome croutons, they are deep fried. So you have no restriction on where you're going to put these croutons. If you took the soup off the fire, you wanted to put the croutons in the soup, that was fine. It's not cooking. These are dried cooked items. So you're allowed to put them in the kli sheni. You're not restricted in what you're going to be doing with your croutons because they're deep fried, considered cooked. Now you're just reheating a dry cooked item. However, the matzah, the crackers, the biscuits, the Chinese noodles, I don't know. Again, you'd have to know it. So with Assam, I actually asked the mashgiach who came from Eretz Israel. I asked him, how are they prepared? He said they are deep fried. So then I'm sharing that with you. But we have the soup nuggets. I don't see them anymore sold, but they used to have like these balls and they used to float on top of the soup. They're called soup nuggets. Those are baked. They're puffy, little puffs.
Well, they usually have them for Pesach.
Okay, those are puffs. Yes, those are made of matzo meal, matzo meal, or they're made of potato starch.
Right.
But you have those little, they used to have them, it was a popular thing. I don't see it anymore in the market. But they used to have these little puffed, baked nuggets. And they used to put them in the soup and they used to float around, look nice, you know. But anyway, so those you cannot put into a kli sheni, has to be a kli shlishi.
How will it become the cliche?
Oh, so the kli shlishi is just taking it from vessel
Take it out of the
one
pot.
to two. So you have those who have a soup tureen. Does anyone still use soup tureens? You know what a soup tureen is? Soup tureen is this big bowl, has two handles, has a cover to it. People who want to be fancy or they want to serve hot soup, so they take the contents of the pot, pour it into the soup tureen. It's a big bowl. You bring it to the table, take it off. It has a ladle, and everybody serves themselves. So the soup tureen is a kli sheni. Anyone who serves from it puts it in their bowl is already kli shlishi. So once it's in your bowl, you're not restricted what you're going to add to your
You can
bowl.
add the bread or soup nuggets or anything.
Yes,
to the
you
third.
could put it to kli shlishi.
That's only when the soup was on the blachter. If you remove the soup before Shabbos starts and it sits on the side and it's still warm, you can serve directly.
Yes, so if it is already, if the temperature is no longer scalding, if it's no longer, so
It's
then.
still hot, but it's not
But
like,
not that right. So that you'd have to be able to judge
right.
what's the status of that
Mm.
temperature.
So if you don't have the soup tureen thing,
So then you have you put bowl one and put it into bowl two.
so you have to use two different bowls.
Yes.
Does a ladle ever count?
I was waiting for that question. What is a ladle? A ladle is a serving spoon. Now, that is removed from the pot. Do we consider that when we put it in? Now, again, the principle of kli sheni is that the walls of the kli sheni are cold. And therefore, if you put a liquid into the kli sheni, the walls of the bowl of the utensil is going to start cooling down the liquid that's inside. That is the principle of a kli sheni. Now, what about the ladle? Does the ladle have the same status as this cup?
So I heard that if you leave the ladle in, it doesn't count. If you
Okay.
have ladle out. then-
Okay, so here we have what you've answered would be a correct answer. In other words, if you leave the ladle in the soup, then the walls of the ladle are as hot as the soup. And they are taking it out as if you were pouring directly from the soup into your bowl. So therefore now the ladle is just an extension of the soup, and it's like called irui kli rishon, pouring from the primary vessel, which is the same as pouring into the primary vessel. Wherever you pour with primary vessel, the second vessel is called kli sheni. So in that case, the ladle is going to be the same as the soup because you left it in the soup where the walls of the ladle got as hot as the soup, and therefore transferring from the soup to your bowl is the same as if you were pouring directly from the pot into your bowl. So I had now another suggestion was, what happens if you don't let it sit in the soup, you're just scooping it out. So then, technically, it would be, the walls of the ladle would not be as hot as the soup, it would be like a kli sheni, and therefore, your bowl, number one, would be kli shlishi. However, are you able to judge how long is considered long and how long is not considered long? It's something. Why would someone leave the ladle in the soup? What advantage is there leaving the ladle in the soup to begin with when you're going to be serving?
For the next person just to come and take it and it wouldn't be dripping.
Thank you.
Okay. There's also,
Why put it in behind the ladle again?
so so what issue could there be if you don't leave the ladle in the soup? What could be our issue? A halakhic issue.
You can't take it off. Like,
No, it's off the fire. We have the ladle inside the soup. What happens if I don't leave the ladle in the soup? Okay, I'm serving soup. I have my ladle and I have a bowl where between one serving and the other, I put my ladle into the bowl, an empty bowl. I'm not going to drip it. I'm not going to put it on the counter. I want it to be hygienic, right? So I have a bowl next to me. I serve the soup. put it I empty out the contents of the ladle, I put it into the bowl, I bring the soup to the table. Now I'm ready to serve my second bowl. What am I going to do? Take the ladle. Now, before we come to what's happening now we have another halacha that we're going to speak about. We spoke about rewarming something that is dry. What about rewarming something that is moist and liquid? Can we rewarm something that is initially cooked but became cold? So now let's take I cooked up water and I put it into a pitcher and I put the pitcher into the refrigerator, and now I'm taking out the pitcher of water and I ask you, you think this water was cooked or not? I'm going to give you to drink this water from the pitcher, and I'm going to ask you the question after you took a sip, was this water cooked or not? Do you know?
No.
No, you don't know. So therefore, once a liquid has cooled down, you start again from the beginning, reheating it as if you're reheating it for the first time. So a pre-cooked piece of meat, chicken, the pre-cooked noodles and rice, the pre-cooked potato that is dry, all of these, once it was cooked, it's cooked. You're just reheating it. With a liquid, halachically, once the temperature falls down, once it becomes cold, you're reheating it, you're starting from the beginning. Unless it's still warm enough to drink as a warm beverage, or if it's a soup that's warm enough to eat as a warm soup. What difference does it make? Reheating it would be, are you allowed to add water or add soup to a bowl of soup that you would like to have another serving, or the bowl of soup is not hot enough for you, you would like to add more soup so it can get hot the way you like it.
I really cooking.
So are you allowed to, it's the same thing now, you're drinking your tea, you drank halfway, and now you want to refill the tea. Can you refill it directly from the urn? So as long as it's warm enough to drink as is, it's considered warm, and it's not considered that you're cooking to begin with, you're just re-adding to a warm beverage, which you're allowed. So if you're having your tea or coffee, then we're going to have to discuss this again, klishlishi, and now you want to refill your cup if it's still warm, enough to drink that's still considered warm enough to drink, and you can go to the urn and you could open the urn and fill up your half cup of tea or coffee, because that is permissible. It's not considered you're cooking to begin with because it's still warm. Same thing, you have a bowl of soup, it's still warm, you're allowed to add more soup to it because you are now just adding to it. It's considered already something that is cooked and just adding to it. Now the story with the ladle is that once the ladle becomes cold, the liquid that's inside the ladle is cold, reheating that cannot be done. You can't take a wet ladle and put that into soup that's cold. So what you have to do is
Leave the ladle.
dry it. No, that's why you have to, if you do want to do it, you have to dry it each time. You're going to take the cold ladle with a cold liquid that's still on it, dry it, and then you use it to serve the next person. So if you leave it inside, you don't have to do anything about it. If it's hot, you can keep serving as long as you wish. Okay. I hope those who are new to the class were able to follow. We're sort of in the middle of, are we able to follow? Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So have a wonderful Shabbos.
Rabbi? Hello? I have
Yes.
a question.
Yes.
So basically, so let's say if you have a pot of soup that you want to serve on Shabbos, you take that pot off from the stove or like the blech, and then you serve it with a ladle, but like not mixing it. Like, does the mixing, like, is that an issue? Mixing the soup?
Mixing the soup is you could serve as you wish. You can take from the bottom, you can take from the top, but to stir it, we don't stir a kli rishon. You don't stir it, but you could take from any level that you want. In other words, you want to have the noodles that are on the bottom, you can grab the noodles on the bottom without stirring, we're just taking it. You have vegetables on the bottom, you can take out the vegetables on the bottom, but we don't stir it.
Uh-huh.
Not in the klirisha, not in the initial pot in which the food was cooked. However, if it's a klisheni, then you can stir it, you can do as you wish.
Got it. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
You too.
Place your stays, rent place, a hospital, or a hotel. What is the time difference? You're 6 years from